Greetings everybody, it's Jim. As you may know, a few months ago I did a long review on the Crying Blades OSR RPG, that old school clone that I just thought the world of. I mean, it was so chock full of new ideas, fresh takes on using an old system, you know, and I spent an hour talking about it. I think maybe Car Wars, Starfire were the only two other videos that I can think of at the top of my head that I spent as long talking about. There was just so much fresh stuff there. And the thing is, they also promised to send me the second book as soon as it came out, because the first one ended on a cliffhanger, right? And it was all the basic rules, character generation and all that, but nothing for spells for mages and priests, right? That was all going to be in the second book. It was all going to cover magic, and of course the third book all about monsters. So they sent it to me, though, about a month later. It got done. They were almost done with it. And so basically I said, yeah, I'll definitely do a video on it. Well, something got lost in translation from Washington to Erie, Pennsylvania when I did my big travel. And, you know, I'm an organizational wizard. One of my strengths of being a communications consultant for board game companies and RPG companies is I can get a number of tasks done really quickly and prioritize correctly. Okay, but this one I just started from scratch. My whiteboard and my task desk on my computer. Basically, I started fresh once I hit Erie, Pennsylvania, forgetting to transfer this little promise over. That once I got the second book for the Crying Blades OSR RPG, that I'd make a video on it. Something I definitely wanted to do because it is just as good as number one. And I can't talk about it as much because it's smaller, because really the majority of the book is spells. But there's definitely lots to talk about, and if you liked my first video, you're going to like the information in this one. Today, I'm going to give you my review of the Crying Blades OSR RPG Part 2, Sorcery and Blessings. Now this part's kind of funny because there's a little planned coincidence here. See, later on in this video with Crying Blades, I'm going to be talking about potions because they really do a great mechanic with potions. I love it. Absolutely. But I was planning on telling you about Harnworld: The Republic of Tharda Kickstarter is coming out right now from Columbia Games on Kickstarter. Not a surprise. Going to tell you about the early bird special? Sure. Not a surprise. What was the surprise that I did not plan? Because I planned for the early bird special to be about potions, the exact same thing that is the most impressive thing that I'm talking about the Crying Blades video. That was not planned. That goes together like Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, you know? Chocolate and peanut butter and chocolate. Just go boom, and it works well together. I'm sure you could use the system for Harn just fine. It just wasn't planned that the early bird special in that thought process of what I'm about to say about potions mixed so well. But either way, go to the Republic of Tharda and get your hardcover pledge in right now, and you can get the $19.95 value for the early bird special of potions, and then probably use it for save your $20 savings to buy both books of the Crying Blades, and you'll find out why as you watch this video. Alright, so let's look at the Crying Blades role-playing system, Volume 2, Sorcery and Blessings. And the first thing is, as I think I mentioned before, it is over 100 pages long, so it's its own book. And so one thing I will say is they definitely do a good job of using the best that they can out of public domain artwork. Okay, it really sets a tone yet again. And my only thought is what they're going to do in the monster manual of the game, because you know, I know there's no shortage of monster pictures out there. But, I mean, are they going to find the best ones and try to find one picture for each one and lock themselves to that? I hope not. Part of me thinks that, you know, because if you felt like you had to, then you're going to. And some pictures probably aren't going to be up to snuff. I imagine there's going to be a few that you're like, it's public domain, it's the only one of this creature, but it doesn't really look all that great. So maybe, I don't know, that would be my only concern. Less is more, that's what I would say. So when it comes to the monster manual, I hope they don't, unless they can find great ones for every one of them, I hope they are as picky as they are here, because these definitely work in these books that I've seen so far. So the first thing that's the same but a little different is saving throws. Now saving throws, if you don't remember from the first one, is 5 plus the level of your character plus the appropriate attribute modifier depending on what spell's being thrown at you. Okay, so then that's the part that's different. You know, it was the same. There was something similar to regular saving throws that have to do with like dexterity. Would be it's kind of the same with dexterity. It's anything that can be avoided using reflexes. Well, that's the same here. Like maybe a fireball being thrown at you, or maybe a lightning bolt. Not magic missile, I don't think. But charisma is against any kind of charming and possession spell. Constitution is any kind of physical damage that's already inflicted, like poison or being hit by a trap. And intelligence, of course, that one's going to be the one for the wizards, is resisting spells and spell-like effects. Strength is going to fight against any kind of physical damage that can't be avoided, but just resisted for a short time and endured, like burning, drowning, freezing, or whatever. Now, that almost seems like it would be the same thing as Constitution, but that one is like, Constitution is for certain types of physical damage that are already inflicted. You're going to have to really, I'm thinking that could use a little, like another sentence or two to really differentiate those two, because they almost seem like the same thing. Okay, so I maybe they could put maybe a sentence or two to change that up. And of course, wisdom is against all deceptions and illusions. All right, and just like before, the type of fighter, the type of character class you are also gives you a +2. Like fighters get a +2 against strength and constitution. Clerics get constitution and wisdom bonuses. Sorcerers get intelligence and wisdom bonuses, and rogues get dexterity and charisma bonuses to their throw. Now, if you remember my video of the Hidden Shrine of Tomoe-chan, I kind of razz at saving throws a little, or not saving throws as much, attribute modifiers a little bit. And if you recall, it's because, a character that's a 10 in strength, let's say, as opposed to an 18, that 18 is supposed to be the creme de la creme. Now, over time, it's really meant less. All right, because now that +4 bonus is only a 20% bonus when it comes right down to it, and that doesn't mean too much. I mean, they only have a 20% more of a chance, even in here, to save versus the regular guy. Now, you could say, hey, this is old. Unlike new Dungeons and Dragons, this can get away with it because they can just say, well, it's magic, it's deadly. They don't get that much of a bonus. Even the best of the best are going to be affected. Fine. And that's fair enough. So that is okay here. Okay, I still would, if you wanted to, and I don't think they should change the rules, but if you want to make yours a little bit better for people who are supposed to be the Conan the Barbarians as opposed to Joe with a sword, maybe you can double the attribute modifier for them, and then that would make them more of a scale. That would make it so they pretty much almost will pass it, but that's the point. They're the creme de la creme. Anyway, all right, so next is the sorcery section, and of course these next 4 sections are separated in a certain way. Magic items are all the way at the end. I'm just talking these 4 sections here. You have sorcery rules, spells. You have cleric rules, blessings. Okay, and it has to be that way, and it makes sense. If you're a player, you're just going to go to the section you want, read the rules, there's the spells, right? No muss, no fuss. However, as a game master, there's a problem here that I ran into. And I think it can be addressed. I think it can be fixed. The thing is, I as a game master, I got to know both rules. So I have to read the sorcery rules first, and it's easy. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. You're going to like this. But when I went to the clerical section, 90% of it is the same rules. Okay? There are a few little differences. That's the problem. They're little differences. And when you're reading the exact same text in the other section, it glazes over your eyes. And I had a hard time finding what exactly was different in the priest section, in the clerical section. Okay? So, and you don't want to combine the two. And my first thought is, why don't they just combine the rules at the beginning, and then, when there's an exception for the priest, they just put it in like either red text or italic text or some kind of block to just say, hey, woo, this is different here. The problem is then all of a sudden you got all the spell lists combined practically. It's nice to have that divider in there. And we want the players to just go to the section where they need to go. So what's the solution? My thought is at the end of each section, the sorcery rules, at the end of the sorcery rules, you put the clerical exceptions just in a little block. Okay, and at the end of the cleric rules, you just put a little block about what's different in the sorcery rules. You just put it there just for reference. That way, the game master knows, oh, okay, that's what's different, you know. So that would be important. So let's go on to what's about sorcery. Scrying Blades does not use Vancian magic at all. It kind of actually uses more of the sorcerer's magics as it came out in 3rd edition. What do I mean by that? Vancian magic, for those of you who aren't familiar, was really an idea based to make game balance for spells based off the Jack Vance novels, the Dying Earth novels. Okay, where a spellcaster can only memorize so many spells a day, and then if they cast a spell, then all of a sudden they would magically forget it and not cast it again, which is fine for game balance. But at the same time, it's so specific an idea, it's not generic enough for standard gameplay across worlds, in my opinion. And a lot of people will be like, you just forget it all of a sudden. It's like, just how does that happen? To a point. So basically they go on the idea that, look, you have a number of 1st level spells, 2nd level spells, 3rd level spells, or so on, depending on your level, that you can cast per day. And as long as you have that spell in your wheelhouse of knowledge, you can cast any spell you want. So if you know 3 1st level spells and you can cast 2 times a day, you can cast those 2 spells of anything on your list. Just go ahead, have at it. But there's no casting and forgetting. The only thing you do have to do is recharge your magical energy, or just take enough of a rest. It's as simple as that. Now, to cast a spell, there are 2 types of ways to cast a spell, and that is slow and fast. Slow is by the default, which is 10 minutes. Of course, a lot of spells are going to be that are combat ready. You're going to want to cast fast. And the only difference between that, because you do have to make an attribute roll of, against intelligence if you're a magic user. A cleric is going to roll against wisdom, of course. And if you fail, this is the only time where this actually comes into play as far as the speed of the spell. If you're casting it at normal speed, which you took a whole 10 minutes to do, a failure, you roll 2d6 on this chart no matter what. But on that, if you took your time to cast a spell, you get to choose the die roll that affects you. If it was cast fast, then it's the game master's interpretation of which to pick. Okay, so this works on the bell curve. It looks like it's only a d6 roll, but it's not. It's much a bell curve. Most spells will just backfire and you suffer a little harm. While, if you roll Snake Eyes, it's just an energy drain. If you roll Boxcars, it's going to become totally unstable and bad things are going to shake out. Now, I like their take on spell books here. Basically, only the owners of a spell book can read their own spell book. Okay, not even another wizard's got to use read magic, and I take that it gives me a feel when I read that it's like going to the gym. 2 guys want to both get a bigger chest, muscle mass in their chest. They're going to work out differently, though, based on their body type. I'm what's called an endomorph, and you may be one yourself. It's like where the guys gain weight pretty easy. Do a few push-ups, eat a donut, bam. You just gain 5 pounds of muscle, right? But we also gain weight in bad ways if we're not doing those push-ups, right? But then you got the mesomorphs, which are like the elves. They can eat all the donuts they want. They ain't gaining any muscle mass really, and it's hard for them. They got to do more exercises in different ways to gain anything. Okay, so much like that, it can be done with magic, where it's like, look, this is how magic works through my body. You're not going to understand it unless you use a read magic spell to translate that to something that would work for your body. Simple enough. Pretty interesting. Now, interesting note here on the 3rd paragraph. They say they don't use Vancian magic, but it says every night or during periods of long rest, sorcerers study their own spellbook to refresh their memory of the spells and to maintain their knowledge. That sounds like Vancian magic a little bit to me. They might want to adjust that to say, they keep the spellbooks just because they're a particular lot, and they're just trying to improve They're just trying to learn more about magic in general by doing so. Okay, that would be a way to get away from the idea of Vancian magic. A small little thing there, but it's there nonetheless. Now, gaining spells is a little bit interesting because to gain a spell, you're just spending XP, 100 XP per power level. Want a 4th level spell, 400 experience points. Simple. Now, the only thing that's a little bit weird is if you find a scroll out in the field, you know, you don't pay any XP at all. You just gain the spell. So it seems like it's almost unfair. It's like, hey, if I'm on my own, I gotta pay XP. But if I'm out in the field, I don't have to gain XP. And I guess that's just because you're at the comfort of your own home as opposed to getting experience in the field doing dangerous stuff. But the real game mechanic here, and that's what it is, a game mechanic, is because you know, if one of your non-magic user friends finds a magic sword with magical properties, they ain't paying XP for it. They've got it in their hands and they're going to be able to use it. You're going to have to be able to use this scroll that you just found, so you shouldn't be penalized by having to pay XP just because you found it. Now, wizards and clerics in the Crying Blades get a little bit of say of where their characters go along a path, while fighters and clerics, if you remember in the first book, as they go up a level, basically they're rolling randomly to see what kind of feat they get. Okay, this are their special skills, right? The same thing actually happens here. The difference is wizards get to pick which circle it comes from. Well, maybe not on the first level. As you can see here, power level 1 only has one circle of magic. It is the circle of simple magic. There are 10 possible spells. But as they get to level 2 and beyond, there are like 2 or 3 different circles in each category. So basically, you get to power level 2, you got the circle of cantrips, the circle of artificium, and the circle of illusion. So let's say, for instance, you want to be an illusionist. You just say, I'm picking from the circle of illusions. You still don't know what spell you're going to get, but you don't have to worry about grabbing some random pyromancy spell. Okay, so and there's 7 different spell levels to you know, in the game, and it gets definitely wild out there. But I like the idea of the randomness still, but still giving the magic user some form of say of where their tree expands. And next after the spell list for magic users is the blessings for the clerics. And of course, blessings work really practically the same way. You know, instead of just little minor differences like, obviously, instead of reading through a book and trying to just study, they're actually doing more prayers and meditation to recoup magical energy. You're still casting to cast a spell, rolling to cast a spell, but you're rolling against wisdom rather than intelligence. But everything else is practically the same, whether it's a fast or a slow spell, the daily limits, and the bad consequences for a failed spell. Now, the only difference here really comes down to if something becomes more unstable. For a magic user, you know, you're going to probably, as a game master, if you're the one that's going to pick what happens, if it's unstable, it's still going to be in the class category of what happens with the spell. It goes overboard or just fizzles away and something happens like that. While with a clerical spell, it could be something totally not related to the spell, such as a demon being summoned or just undead rising or something else like that. So in a way, this might be different, but that's going to be up to the game master. Now, one thing that's definitely different is the circles here. Not that they don't have, of course they have different spells because they're priests rather than magic users, but while priests on average roll a d8 to get their random spell, here it's going to be a d6 on average, except for the power level 1 that goes from 1 to 10. You know, so it's a smaller group to work with, but that's the way they go there. Now, next up is the magic items, and this is the part where I think they do the best job of doing something innovative here for the potions. I really like what they did here. See, the thing is, you know, back in the old school Dungeons & Dragons, we all know it. It's a blue viscous liquid, or it's an opaque liquid, or it smells funny, or it smells good. None of it really mattered, did it? You know, I mean, they're always trying to toss you around in the old school D&D. You never knew what to think. You know, there was no certainty whatsoever unless you took it to an alchemist, right? And even then, the results may not be consistent. Just because you see a blue viscous liquid the first time does not mean the second time you necessarily see it, it's going to be the same. Okay, might change depending on your game world and stuff like that. But what they do with potions here is they give you a little bit of a real hint here. Basically, they do it by color. All green potions are natural potions. All clarity potions are transparent. All mutations are blue. Protections are yellow. Blesseds are red. All right. So now that doesn't mean you know exactly what it does, but it is the category of it. And much like spells, There are 8 potions in each category. You can change that up as you like, but their default is 8 different types of potions. Okay, now this may be common knowledge for all I know. It depends on your world setting, but definitely the alchemists would know the exact thing. But even adventurers, your common adventurers would know if they are into potions at all what like protection potions are for yellow. They'll know exactly what that is. And even though they don't know exactly what that effect will be, in a pinch, like in combat situation, you take a protection potion. It's not going to be a bad idea, right? You at least should take it, as opposed to other potion categories where it may totally whiff. You may not need a potion of that stuff, and you're like, "Oh, I didn't need that. That's going to waste." But what can you do? But then there's also the idea that there's still risk involved. Then it is with the cursed potions. It's a 1 in 6 chance. Not that your players would actually know that percentage or anything like that, but 1 in 6 are cursed. They look like any other potion. Okay, so they won't know until they drink it or take it to an alchemist to make sure it's not poisoned or cursed or what have you. Okay, but it's what I like about this in general. It gives you some kind of certainty, but it gives you plenty of uncertainty, and there is still risk involved. This is a great game master's tool, and it's going to make the players feel on edge, which is going to elevate their enjoyment level. Now with Scrolls, they've got something here that I actually want to use in the fantasy chip role-playing game, because much like the Crying Blades, they require you to roll when you cast a spell. Scrolls, no roll needed. It just plain works. So that's a nice little bonus. It gives you a little bit of surety when you're casting a spell, okay? Especially an important one, perhaps. Now, one of the things I also like is they give the option of having 2 spells on the scroll. The thing is, you use one, the whole thing goes up in flame, and you lose the other. So it's those little, if you make the spells close to each other in power and usability, that's how you do it, Or you put a real major spell on there. And mind you, they say it should be random. You should just roll it off and stuff like that. But if you really wanted to mess with people, you put a really powerful spell in there, but then you put a moderately useful spell tactically in there. Is like, and you know that you guys are going to get in trouble, and like, oh, that's such a powerful spell, but we need this now, and just see if they have the guts to call the shot and just make the whole thing go up in flame for what's usable now, rather than trying to hold on greedily. Pretty cool stuff here with Scrolls. One of the things that Daemon Games does well, it gives you a hint that they really experienced game masters, is the idea of single-use magic items, okay? Of course, magic items can be used by anybody, while scrolls can only be used by wizards or the proper scrolls for clerics. For instance, a key that it can only be used once to open any lock, right? I could see even a magic user, casting a spell on a key right there while talking to adventurers and giving it to them. And even then, right there, instead of saying the process, because generally the process for a wizard to make a magical item usually takes weeks. You got to go through the process because it's so powerful. They got to make it a balance, right? Well, if it's just single use, you can get away with just doing it spontaneously, and here you go, and that's really cool. So they can get, so either whether they get magic items on the field or they're given magic items by a patron, it doesn't really matter. It's just they're not as powerful because they're only going to be used once. So you get the best of both worlds. They get magical items, and they actually can even find them as loot, but they're not so powerful that they kill your gameplay. Okay, they got something. You can even give them something really powerful, like a +3 damage sword that, one time, they can say, okay, I'm using my +3 damage, or I get to roll twice for damage and let them go, shaka, 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 but then it's gone. That's probably one of the best things that they do. Now, this does not mean they don't have permanent magic items, because they absolutely do, but they've completely focused on the idea that it is extremely rare, okay? And even then, they talk about making some kind of drawback to it, some kind of curse, or just not necessarily even a curse, just a drawback to it, or or something, or just not make them super powerful if they are permanent. More like a +1/+1 damage is more than enough. Save those other time, or maybe just once a day if you're going to give them a double die bonus or something like that, or once per adventure. I mean, whatever. But the bottom line is they really focus on making magic items rare in the permanent sense. Most of the time, you're going to see them being one-time use. So I'm definitely anticipating the third book, The Monster Manual. Not that I really shouldn't expect anything innovative at that level, because I expect it to be just a book of monsters, and that should be fine. Because they've already hit 2 home runs with all these new ideas and stuff like that makes the Crying Blades is the most innovative. Hate to use that word. I know like some people think it's overdone, but there's no other way to describe it for this. The most innovative OSR out there. I mean, some people have some ideas. These guys just got a chock full of it, and they didn't just throw it at the wall and see what stuck. If they did, well, everything stuck and their walls need repainted. I mean, really is good stuff there. $10 a book, folks. $20 for the complete set of rules. And probably $10 more, I'm assuming, for the Monster Manual that's about to come out. I mean, you're not losing. I mean, you've paid less for bigger Kickstarters that offered you less. The Crying Blades book is out there. Guys, thank you very much. I'll see you next video.